Welcome to Biology Chapter 1, Form 5, which is Organization of Plant Tissues and Growth. So we will talk a lot about plant tissues and we'll talk a lot about growth in this chapter, and you can always scan the QR code to find out what you need to know by the end of the chapter in terms of standards, right? And hopefully by the end of the chapter, you will be able to answer these questions. Okay, let's start with the little fun fact, which is the purpose of using LED lighting for plant factories. So a plant factory is a closed production system set up in a building or controlled facility. So keywords: closed production system, controlled facility. Okay, so all the required elements such as light, temperature, carbon dioxide, humidity, all are provided artificially because we want it to be controlled. Okay, and this system produces constant, high quality and high yield supply of crops throughout the year. This can be tomatoes, it can be salads, it can be what else? Corn. Well, not corn. Salads mostly. It's used in salads and herbs mostly. Herbs that require sensitive herbs that require specific elements to make sure that they grow well. Okay, the closed structure uses stacked hydroponic growing system that are covered with LED lights as the main source of light for plants to undergo photosynthesis, which is what you see here, purple light. Stacked production just means one level is here and then another level is here, another level, and so on, and then they just stack throughout the whole building or a controlled facility. And the reason why LED lighting is used because it is cost efficient in a way, right? It produces less heat and reduces electrical consumption. I'm pretty sure some of you have bought your own LED lights. It's basically the same thing. Okay. And as you've realized, it is not warm. It doesn't emit a lot of heat. So it's very good for the plants. It doesn't destroy like the integrity of the plants. So it helps to increase the production of nutrients and antioxidants in leaves, apart from improving shape, texture, and color of the leaves. So if you're thinking of growing some salad at home, just use your LED lights. You don't need to grow it outside. You can just grow it inside your room if you want to. Okay? And then some of the keywords, important keywords that you should read beforehand so you know what to expect throughout this chapter. Okay? Pectin, growth curve, lignin, tissues, zone of cell, etc., etc. Okay? Now, 1.1, organization of plant tissues. So you have learned about the different levels of organization in Form 4, which is the cell organization, which is cell, tissue organ, organ system, and the whole whatever lah, that one, right? So name a few specialized cells in plants. There are two main ones, phloem and xylem. That's it. Specialized cells for plants. However, we are going to get a bit more in depth with this. Okay, there are two types of plant tissues, meristematic and permanent tissues. So meristematic are actively dividing tissues through mitosis. So an easy way to remember, you remember mitosis, you remember meristematic. Starts with M for both of them. Okay, so we will learn also the subsections in each of the different types of tissues with more tissues and more tissues. Don't worry, we will go through all of them. So first, we will start with permanent tissues. So permanent tissues are matured tissues. Okay, they are not actively dividing. They are matured tissues which have experienced or are experiencing differentiation. Okay, so permanent tissues, differentiation. Remember that. Permanent tissues, differentiation. Okay, and three different types would be epidermal, ground tissues, and vascular tissue. So it is a good idea to remember how it looks like under the microscope, how parenchyma, sclerenchyma, and collenchyma come into the micrograph. So it sort of helps with your memory, helps with your understanding of the functions of each tissue and the position, of course, right? As you can see here, there are different types, different places of where the permanent tissues are situated. Okay, so we'll go into detail of each type of permanent tissue. The first one would be the epidermal tissue, and as you can see here in this image, epidermal covers the whole outermost surface of different parts of the plants. So yeah, first one, epidermal. If you remember epidermis in human, which is our skin, right? It covers the outermost layer. It is the same, epidermal tissues. Epidermal, outermost surface. Then we go to the cell wall. Epidermal cell walls are exposed to air, so they actually have a waxy and waterproof layer, which is called the cuticle. So this is very thin, and it's also transparent. Okay, it's waxy, waterproof, thin, and transparent cuticle. It functions to reduce loss of water through evaporation, protects the leaf from mechanical injuries and pathogens. If you've ever scraped a leaf before, you can actually feel the difference. Like before you scrape it, it's very dry, it's very waxy, and it's just a leaf lah, right? But once you scrape the surface, you're basically scraping off the cuticle. Excuse me. So the layer that you have scraped, if you touch it, it's a bit damped compared to the surface that is not scraped. So that's why the cuticle is waterproof. It keeps the leaf from losing water. Okay. And then in the epidermal cell, you have two cells, which are modified: the guard cell, which controls the opening of the stoma, and the root hair cell. These will be sort of discussed in either the next chapter, in the next few chapters. Yeah. Then we move on to the ground tissues. So the ground tissues, as you can see from here, they hold a big chunk in the plant itself, and there are 3 different types. So the levels are the main difference would be the thickness of the cell walls and the type of tissues that they are. Okay, so we'll start with parenchyma, which is the simplest living cell. Oops. And it doesn't go on a differentiation. So parenchyma does not go through differentiation actually, and has the thinnest cell wall. So they are always in a turgid state, providing support and maintaining the shape of the herbaceous plants, albeit being thin. Okay, it is involved in photosynthesis, help in the storage of starch and sugar, and involved in gaseous exchange. So with this point, it is actually connected to this point. So due to the thinness of the cell wall, it actually helps to facilitate the photosynthesis and gaseous exchange of the plants. Okay, and lastly, it is involved in the repair and regeneration of plant tissues, as well as in the vascular system. So that's parenchyma, simplest living cell, does not undergo differentiation, thinnest cell wall. Then we go to collenchyma tissue. The collenchyma tissue are made of living cells which are mature, right? They mature into cells that are flexible. I guess still maturing, they're not matured, there's no D, okay? They are maturing into cells that are flexible. The cell walls are made of pectin and hemicellulose and are a bit thicker than parenchyma. So in terms of thickness, very thin, middle, and then collenchyma is thickest. We'll go to that later. And then collenchyma actually also provides mechanical support and elasticity to plants. And if you want to remember better, elasticity, flexible, they go together. Okay, collenchyma. Then lastly, the last type of ground tissues would be sclerenchyma tissue. The sclerenchyma tissues consist of dead cells when they are matured. So yeah, they're basically matured cells which consist of dead cells. And they are the thickest among the three ground tissues because, as you know, the dead cells sort of is it overlap? No, collect lah, I guess, right? Throughout the lifetime of the tissue, it becomes thick. So of course your cell walls are thick. Okay. Also because they are matured, you know, they have more time to sort of build build that cell wall to be thick. And of course, with the cell wall, with the thick cell wall, they provide support and mechanical strength to the parts of matured plants, and they help in the transport of water and nutrients in the plants. So that's ground tissues. Now we go to vascular tissue. Vascular tissue made up of the specialized cells that we have mentioned right in the first part of 1.1, which are xylem and phloem. So xylem is actually made up of dead cells without the cytoplasm. If you ever encounter a question we ask, why is xylem dead? Is that the correct question? Well, I've seen a question like that lah. The answer would be they do not contain cytoplasm. Okay, without cytoplasm, they cannot support any of the other organelles that are usually exist in other cells. So xylem, dead cell, no cytoplasm. Okay, cell wall of xylem then contains lignin, and the xylem vessels are elongated, hollow, and connected to each other. So it is continuous from root to leaves. Okay, from roots to leaves again. And this enables xylem to transport water and mineral salts to all parts of the plants. I guess the continuation, if you can imagine a tube, because it is a tube basically, it's basically a tube in the plant to transport water and mineral salts. That's what xylem is. Okay, and then we move on to phloem. Phloem is living cells. So phloem is made up of companion cells and sieve tubes. The sieve tubes have cytoplasm, but they don't actually have the organelles such as nucleus and ribosomes as they decompose at maturity stage. Okay, they don't make the DNA, so they don't have nucleus and ribosome. And then the sieve tubes are actually arranged from one end to another end, forming elongated and continuous tube structures. So xylem and phloem are both continuous. They're both tube structures. However, for phloem, it does not transport water and mineral salts. Phloem transports sugars produced from photosynthesis from leaves, and then it goes to the storage organs such as roots, fruits, and tubers. Okay, so for phloem, it can actually go from one leaf, like leaves to leaves. It doesn't necessarily have to go from leaf to root only, leaf to fruits only, leaf to flowers only, because all parts of the plants need energy. And where do you get the energy from? You get energy from sugars, right? So phloem sort of just circulates the sugars, sort of transport the sugars to all parts of the plant. Right, and that is 1.1. We'll go to 1.2 in the next video.